how long are you going to hold the dud property? How much time are you giving up if you buy a dud and you hold it for 10 and 20 years? Because that's not 6 months of difference at the end of 10 or 20 years. That's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, which if you then equate that to a freedom number, how much freedom can that buy you? Well, it's a heck of a lot more than 3 to 6 months.
Welcome back to Property Banter by Pinnacle Buyers Agents, powered by Hashtag. Now, we only expected to do a two-part with Peter Bowman, and it turned out that we had plenty more to talk about, and we just kept the cameras rolling, so we've got a raw and uncut part 3 coming to you right now. If you haven't already checked out part 1 and part 2, make sure you go do that before watching this one. But for those of you that have seen part 2 and 3, you're really going to like this. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and make sure you enjoy it above all else. Let's go.
What do you tell your people when you're saying the top 3 things they need to consider when they start out in real estate?
When you're starting out as a property investor, on the spot here, top 3 things you need to look for. Value, I think, is one of the most important things when you're looking to buy an investment property. And I think I touched on that with the under replacement value metric we spoke about earlier. Buying value, always spotting that. Like me running over to Perth 2.5 years ago and buying a $300,000 3-bedroom brick veneer home on a 750 square meter corner block that's subdividable. That's 30 minutes to Perth, right? Value. Can't buy that post-COVID money. Can't build it. Can't cut the land. Can't go through, council civils, all the costs and associated with that. To buy something like that is value for money. Look for the value. Other people will see it later on. Like right now in Melbourne, 450K. 6-year-old 322 on a 400 square meter block can't be built for $450,000. And 322 that's 6 years old, to me, is a brand new home.
Yeah.
It's like the secondhand Toyota Corolla with 40,000 Ks, but it's way cheaper secondhand. Like it's that really essential, isn't it?
Would it be fair to say that what you're saying is buy your profit?
Yeah.
Buy your profit.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. That's one of the biggest things in my mind, because Australia has this whole dream, the Australian property dream.
Yeah.
Which I think is fundamentally flawed in many, many ways, in the way it's spoken about.
Yes.
In the way it's spoken about. Not that the dream isn't possible in real estate. Clearly, I think it is. But the idea that just buy any property is a good property, I think is a horrible strategy. But if you're doing that, number one, it's literally like rolling the dice at the casino. Yes. But number 2 is, what's your exit strategy? There's no plan. You're buying possibly your biggest purchase, your biggest investment in your entire life, and then sitting back going, I hope it works out. Yeah. I hope all of these things that I can't control work in my favor. Yep. As opposed to if you're buying value, if you're buying under market value, or you're applying strategies that manufacture the profit, yes, you have more control over that outcome. Yes. And like I said, in the podcast, is even if you have no intention of ever developing, buying a development site's still a good choice. There's an exit there. That's going to appreciate more in line with the increase in land. So yeah, whether it's what you pointed out before, or you're buying somewhere you can add a granny flat or a cosmetic renovation, or just something where you can manufacture or buy your profit, I think is crucial. Which I think the biggest thing people struggle with there is the patience.
There's no patience. But look at this, on a long term. Our client has a long-term strategy, right? On this particular purchase, which isn't the one we just discussed, it's another one that is zoned to go 3-story. So you can throw 3-story units on that. But it's just a regular house. It's $480,000. And it's a brick veneer concrete slab home, about 40 years old, 35 years old, right? And it's right down the road from the shopping centre, right near the on-ramp into the city. This is Melbourne, and it's zoned for 3-story high-rise. Okay, no one's building 3-story high-rises now. But long-term, that's a long-term buy and hold, and the data set's good in that area. And if you can add that in to the mix on top of that as the sweetener, the icing on the cake, that's the sort of value I like buying from my clients.
Absolutely. I think too, you
don't have to use it. I'm not telling my client, hey, bud, guess what? 10 years' time, you're about to develop 3-story walk-up town units, right? That's not what I'm telling you. I'm just saying, look, just have it there.
Yeah, it's something to have in the back pocket. And I think the thing is, it's like when I mentioned patience before, I have people, they'll go looking for a deal and 3 months in they're getting impatient, and 6 months in they're ready to throw in the towel. It's like, well, okay, so something we've got to work on there anyway. If we put that to the side for a moment anyway, but it's like, how long are you going to hold the dud property? How much time are you giving up if you buy a dud and you hold it for 10 and 20 years, because that's not 6 months of difference at the end of 10 and 20 years. That's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, which if you then equate that to a freedom number, as in how much freedom can that buy you, well, it's a heck of a lot more than 3 to 6 months. So like anything, it's a long-term thing. You got to think of the time you put in now, or if you're using a buyer's agent, you're buying their time. The time you're putting in now is an investment in your future. It is, okay, well, if I put in the time now, and I mean, anyone feel free to get out an Excel spreadsheet on this one. You get 100 grand and you make a spreadsheet where it shows you 10% return, 11% return, 15% return, 20% return. And you'll just see that those exponential differences in those slight returns. It's like, well, if putting in 3 to 6 months now, getting educated, spending a few grand on your education now, enables you to increase or just shift that benchmark just slightly, ever so slightly, a few percent, which I promise you can do a heck of a lot more than a few percent, then that difference to you in 20, 30, 40 years' time is exponential. It's huge. But we've just got to get ourselves out of that mindset of thinking 3 months, 6 months. What am I doing this weekend? I don't want to go to an open home this weekend. I looked at properties last weekend. All right, well, the winners are out there doing it. They're not on Netflix. They're out there doing it. They're working. They're putting in the time. They're investing their time to get more later.
100%. And you got to be careful with the smaller margin ones, because they can eventually have a lot of problems and so on. So yeah, finding that right deal is incredibly important, isn't it? And they come around. They do. If you're patient, they will come around.
Oh, 100%. And you're better off, like I've had people say, oh, well, if you're looking for 20% deals, why not just do 2 deals with 10%? It's like, I understand the question, but only a person who's never done a deal will ask that question. Because if you do a deal, and I've never had a deal be 10%, but if you do a deal that ends up being fine margin because of something happening, you'll understand you don't want to repeat that process, because this is about creating wealth and creating an amazing life, not just creating money in your bank account. So if while doing this, you feel poor and you have a poor experience of life, well, then what wealth have you really created? And I can promise you, doing multiple 10% deals is going to give you that experience.
You know what's not on the spreadsheet is how much stress goes into that 10% deal, and what that year or two of your life is going to be. And I promise you, once you go through the stress, you'll realize quickly it's not worth the money. And they won't be back. They won't be back. I don't know. Do you know anyone who actually comes back for multiple 10% deals? See? It doesn't exist.
But the thing is, the trick is, and this is for the newbies, is the story that they will tell is not typically, one of responsibility. I decided to take on these deals because I wasn't patient enough to wait for the great deals, and therefore I burnt myself out. That's not the story they'll tell. The story they'll tell is 20% deals don't exist. Property development or real estate is the problem. The finger will be pointing elsewhere.
Heard that from agents.
Yeah, it's always the finger is pointed elsewhere. When the truth is, they actually just didn't either build the skills to do it or didn't have the patience to do it. But you just got to look at the people whose results you want, and make sure you take that advice.
100%.
Yeah,
that's never going to go out of fashion. I mean, the people that are making money for a reason. They've got the experience. They're doing it. Learn from them. Like I said, always. I didn't even. My strategy I've refined in my way. I do it in my way. But I've obviously learned this from other people, right? I had mentors earlier. I remember sitting next to Steve Waters from Right Property Group. I'd sit next to him at the auction, and he'd be like, "I'm buying this because it's this type of play. I'm buying this because it's that," and that's where I learned. Right? And then I've gone and refined it and done my own little renovation way. And deals are still going to be done long after I'm gone. They were done before me. It's just learning from people that know.
I should say too, just on something I said earlier. So, like, the appropriate return is dependent on the deal and the complexity and the time.
Explain this.
So, good question. Yeah, glad you said that. So if you're doing a deal that's going to take you 3 months, then it doesn't necessarily need to have the same large ROI than a deal that's going to take 18 months, because ROI is really a measure of risk. So if it's a faster deal, you've reduced the risk a bit. So what are faster deals? Okay, cosmetic renovations. Yes. Cosmetic renovations, if you get good at them, you can be in and out of them in a few months. Yeah. Now, I would never recommend anyone start doing cosmetic renovations for 10 or 12% ROI, but I know people that do it as a business and people that I've coached that do it as a business, and they do 5, 6, 7 of these a year, and they will do them at 10 to 12% margin, but it's because they've refined their system to like a manufacturing line. So they can do it that reliably at 10 to 12%, and they're in and out of them in 3 to 4 months. Yeah. So in that case there, with that level of skill, they can do that. Starting out, they didn't start there either. They were at 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
Because the reality is when you're starting out, when you think it's 15 to 20%, it's probably 10%. So that's why you don't start at 10%.
And that's why you need to learn the spreadsheet. You need to learn the spreadsheet. You need to learn how to do it properly.
Yeah. And then, if we're talking the land game, all right, splitters, where they're already on 2 lots, but on, one title, an example. Okay, you can get in and out of those in 3 to 5 months, sometimes faster with some cool contracts. Yeah. So you don't necessarily need to get a 20% ROI on that. 15 to 17% is probably okay. Again, people starting out, I'd still suggest 17 to 18% because there'll be things that you will miss because you don't yet know them. Yeah. But now I would happily do a splitter on 15% because of where my skill set is at. Yeah. And I know I can get in and out of it in 3 odd months. I mean, the fastest one I've done was 6 weeks. So it does depend on the time. And then there's the reverse, the other end of it, where if people do, okay, they go, subdivision, 20% ROI is what I hear I should do. Okay, but what if there's these people that then go, but I can't reach 20% with the land, so I'm going to go build a house to get the 20%. People will disagree with me on this. I don't then think it's the same thing because you've now just extended the time of the deal as well.
Yep.
So now it's...
And you've added to the risk. You've added to problems. You've added to actually your personal stress and how much you've got to work for it now.
100%. So that 18-month deal is now a 24-month deal or even longer. Yep. Well, if you then look at your cash-on-cash return or your internal rate of return, so your actual return each year, it's now not very sexy. So ROI has to be viewed within the context of time, which we won't get into that today, but internal rate of return then takes care of that. But that's something that's really important to understand is that there are times where finer margins are okay, but that typically comes with a lot of experience. But then you've got to be really careful that you don't extend these deals out and add complexity to them trying to reach this ROI number when really all you've done is just increase your risk, increase your headaches, and slow down your velocity, which is really important.
Yep, and I'd happily take less of a margin for something that's simple and is a few months, and take it and move on.
Give me 1 or 2 deals at healthy margins rather than 5 deals at questionable margins any day of the week.
You always work more for problems. Now, they might not necessarily just be real estate; they could be problem clients. I've had clients that you could tell a mile off that they're about to give me a problem, and you ignore the red flags, right? And it's the same with looking at property developments, right? So you find a site and you're trying to ignore this red flag because in you're trying to make this work because you feel, hey, I found something that's close enough. I want to try and make it work because something inside you is telling you want to make it work.
It's the psychology again. It's like, I want to be a developer. I want to be in a deal.
Yes, and you can't find anything better.
Yep.
So we need to make this one work because this is the best thing I can find right now, and I've got to make that work. Whereas what you should be doing is, analysing it, seeing where it's not right, and happily moving on. But human nature, you need to learn to remove your ego from deal analysis as well and understand what you're thinking and why you're thinking it. And that's quite often how the mentor's really going to help. It's going to say, oh, hang on a second. You're looking at this like this when you should be looking at it like this. Yeah,
definitely. That's, you mentioned that example there. So like, I think this is one of the biggest examples of how psychology can really mess with us. And these are real life examples through the time that I've been doing coaching, where part of the service when they're part of this program is that they have the ability for me to look over their deals and to scrutinize the feasibilities and go through all that. And you'll get people that will elect not to take up that service and just go and buy the deal. Now, just think about what's got to be involved there in the psychology, where you've paid good money to have a mentor there and you elect consciously to not show them the deal, so otherwise hide the deal from them, because they are so committed to getting into a deal, but not necessarily.
They don't want to hear the bad news.
Yeah, they just want to be in.
That's just prolonging the time at which you receive your bad news. So if you don't want to receive the bad news in the deal analysis, you will receive bad news in the middle of the deal when you've already committed to it, you've already bought it, you've paid the stamp duty, you're in. Then you get your bad news. You're just prolonging it. But that's quite funny because I was, while you were speaking, sitting here going, okay, cool. Do you offer a service where I've got a feasibility, I've absolutely loaded it how I feel it should be and as correct as possible? Can I have someone who knows, who's really good at this, look over that and do their own analysis on that sheet and the site, have a look at it, I pay X amount and they come back to me with the differences they see that may pop up where in the spreadsheet I didn't put something, or how something should be priced possibly, slightly differently to how I've priced it. Is there that service available? So I'm sitting here going, in my mindset, I would pay for that straight away. And then you have people that already pay for it and don't use it.
So it's a good question. So look, it's never a service that I've offered specifically. It's always been something that people that I'm coaching one-on-one, that is part of what I do for them. So let's put this out there. How about we say this? If enough people inquire and message me on Instagram about wanting that service, I'll create that service.
I think it's valuable. I'm sitting here going, I would literally, that's exactly what I'd want. Exactly. And you got people who pay for it and don't use it.
It won't. I'll tell you right now, it wouldn't be cheap, but it'll.
Yeah.
And why? Because I treasure my time, and and
it's an insurance policy, though.
I tell you what, that's the thing is like, you're talking about either saving yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars, or the thing is too, where mentors add or where that experienced eye adds value to is also seeing opportunities, seeing areas where there's additional savings that can be made or additional profits that can be made. Yeah. But so look, we'll put that out in the universe. If I get enough messages on Instagram from it, I'll let you know, and we'll create a service for it.
100%. No, it's really good. So anyone out there looking to become a developer and do subdivisions, doesn't matter what walk of life they come from, what their current job is, can anyone make the transition? I mean, is this something that's doable for everyday Australians?
Yeah, look, it is. And I mean, I guess not only my own story, but many people that I've worked with, stories that have had absolutely no history in real estate whatsoever. Yeah. I mean, my history was I left high school and was chasing the dream of being a professional volleyball player. Yeah. I pursued that for a number of years, got to play in Holland, realised that it wasn't actually what I was after, came back, did a 3-week trial as a real estate agent. That was the extent of my real estate career at that point. Yeah. I then got into sales, selling solar and energy efficiency products, that sort of stuff. Ended up in logistics, none of which had anything to do with real estate. And look, I think sometimes having a history in real estate, it can be a strength or an impediment. Again, depending where you're at between
mindset,
years.
Psychology.
Yeah, because if you come into it thinking you're an expert, you tend to be closed off to a lot of lessons, and you tend to be closed off to, you're not in that learning mode. You're already sitting there going, I already know a lot, I'll just pick up a few things, as opposed to people that go in there going, I have no history in this, I need to learn a lot. They are just like a sponge, and they are soaking up everything they can get. And so often they will actually be the ones that get the results the fastest, because they come into it with the right mindset of, I need to learn, I need to soak up, and they come in with humility. Because I can tell you, when you're getting started, think about this for a second. If you already knew everything you needed to know, and if you already thought the way you needed to think, how do you not have the results?
Yeah.
It's not possible, is it?
Yep.
So therefore, in order for you to get the results, things that you believe to be true must be false or not serving you, and belief systems that you hold must not be serving you and need to change. Yes. Now, that sounds simple, but for people to actually acknowledge that and go, I have this hard-held belief that I've believed it all my life. These are money rules that I grew up with. My father told me, my grandfather told me, It's like, all right, did your father and your grandfather have the results you want? All right, that's the first question. You've got to be willing to actually entertain that some of these really strongly held beliefs and things you thought were facts just may not be so. You'll probably know the saying, it's often not what we don't know that gets us in trouble, it's what we think we know that just ain't so. There's a famous guy from, I think, the 1800s. It was Rockefeller.
It was Rockefeller. Yeah.
Which I think that is on the money for this. Yeah. It's not what we don't know that gets us in strife. It's what we think we know that just ain't so. And I know that was the same for me. Money beliefs I had. One thing, and this is just a kind of a funny example, I think, but like early days, I was driving a Kia Optima when I started this. And after doing a few deals, my mentor was like, mate, I think it's time we get you a nice car. It's got to be a reward. You got to reward yourself along the journey. It's not something that has come naturally to me. And he's like, I think we should get you a Mercedes or something. And I broke out in a rash. I started sweating.
Why?
I had a physical reaction to the idea of actually displaying wealth out in an outward way. Because that was one of my things growing up, was we do not display wealth in an outward way. But I'd never realized it was such a strongly held belief that I literally started sweating and went red and all mottily with the idea of me having a Mercedes. So he went away on a cruise and he's like, you need to drive my Mercedes for a week. And it was, man, did it push all my buttons.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's funny. And I would fully recommend this to people that are looking, you've got to shake things up. Go and test drive the cars that are your dream cars. Yeah. Go and, try on that diamond ring that you think you could never afford. Go and do these things that push your buttons that you think only people that live life that way will do. Because you got to taste the stuff. Yeah. That makes a huge difference.
There's plenty of people with AMGs with $150,000 finance. And then there's so many people driving a Toyota Camry that have multiple properties and millions of dollars worth of equity. It's quite funny.
I'd say it's mostly that way around.
Yes,
it's mostly, mostly the one, like the wealthiest people that I know, you would never, ever know. Yeah. Like, look, some of them drive a Beamer or a Mercedes, but it's kind of like the guys that I know that have millions of dollars, mostly drive, Camry, a Tesla, but not the Model X or anything like. It's just kind of like mid-range stuff. Yeah. The guys that I know that are worth tens of millions, they drive a Beamer or a Mercedes or something like it's not the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and all the rest of it. Because the thing is, once you understand the power of money, it's much harder to kind of throw it away. Yes. I am a bit of a Scrooge with that. I will admit that, especially with cars. I have a lot of trouble spending money on cars. I just bought a Model Y, and even that was, for me, I was like, oh man, could do so much else with that money. Good. But then I found a fun way to get around that. Was I created a deal to pay for I created a.
So you got the justification.
Exactly. Yes. So I kind of tricked my own psyche. I was like, all right, if I can create a deal where I give myself a car for free, then that's okay. So created a deal where it was a rent-to-rent scenario. So head lease on a property, rented out to multiple parties. That's cost of that. Also, the income coming from that will pay for the cost of it as well as the car. Wow. So I was like, all right, there we go. Okay. Yep.
Nice. Good job. Good job. That's how you take profit. That's how you take your profit. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. You enjoying it?
Well, actually, I picked it up last Monday, and now it's getting wrapped. So I don't actually get it back until Friday. That's been a bit hard. More tough on the kids, actually. I think everyone was sick of hearing that we were getting a Tesla leading up to getting the Tesla. Oh, yeah. And then I was like, all right, we'll have it for a week, then I'll send it off to get wrapped, and then we'll get it back. But anyway, so it's been gone for a week, and we get it back on Friday. So there you go. They're a bit excited.
Nice. So some of the wealthiest people that you work with, some of these mentors that you've worked with, and people that you know that do land subdivisions, what do their big deals look like?
Okay, so probably the largest scale, which is actually one of the guys that I'm in business with the fund that I told you about, and I won't mention names. He's a very private person, but they've done around 4,000 to 5,000 lots.
4,000 to 5,000 lot subdivision.
Oh, no, that's multiple deals. So some of them might have been 300 lots, some of them might have been 1,000 lots. Okay. Yeah, but over the last 10 years, they've done about 4,000 to 5,000 lots down in Victoria, which just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. But that and so some of them building towers, some of them focus mostly on commercial. You tend to find they tend to stick to their lane in that. So he does mostly subs. The guys that do built form,
well,
they tend to stick to that. And when they want to cross over, they tend to partner with each other. Even at that level, when they still kind of go, well, you know what, I'm the expert here. I need an expert with this.
That's what I'd expect at that level. Yeah. That's what I'd expect, because it's the average punter who doesn't have the experience. It's like, I want to do this for myself or whatever. And it's an ego-based decision. Yeah. Whereas at that top level, they could be sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars and they're literally like, okay, cool. I'm going to partner with someone who's as good in their field as I am in mine. And we're going to make sure that we minimize every bit of risk between us that we know we can do. And come out on top together. And they'd rather do that than go at it alone like a lot of people do. See, that's the difference in the mindset at the top end. I love that.
Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the reasons this whole fund came about. Was exactly that. It was like, all right, well, there's all these deals that we get to do and that mostly only wealthy individuals get access to. Yeah. So the idea of the fund was creating a fund where people get access to these deals, but they don't already have to be worth $50 million, to get a seat at the table. So, that's, which I think is pretty awesome. Because, look, a lot of the deals, like even the deals that I do, like if I go through the metrics properly, I do have to tone them down because for most people it's too unrelatable because we're so used to talking in this area over here. what we learn at school, which is mostly go to the bank and these interest rates, and then you might hear of someone making 10% or whatever. But then if someone tells you they're making 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 100% on their money, immediately people will go gamble, high risk.
Too good to be
Too
true.
good to be true. No, you've just never had your eyes open to how deals can be structured to make that kind of thing possible. And I guess if we reverse engineer it, we went through on the podcast how to do deals with no money down, where it's effectively infinite return because you're not putting any money in. Well, if infinite's possible, shouldn't 100% be easy?
Oh, well said. That's true. That's true. And it's all, but once again, when it comes back down to knowledge. If you don't have the money, you need to learn the knowledge. And that's the gold.
Yeah. Oh, look. And look, my eyes still continue to get opened up. Like you said, putting yourself near people that you're learning from when they're talking, like it's so important, because if you reach a point where you think you know it all, that's when life's about to get boring, and you're probably about to get a good whack from reality. But I make sure I get exposed to bigger deals, and every time you do that, you're like, wow, never thought of doing it that way. Or they do something you already knew how to do, but they do it in an entirely different way. And it's just like eye opens again. And you can take that and implement it straight away in your own deals.
And have you noticed that the more you learn in your field, and I'm doing this with the buyers agency, the more I learn, the more I realize I've got more to learn.
Oh, yeah.
It's only the person that doesn't know shit that literally sits there and goes, I know how to do it. I know. Mate. And then the ones who are at the top of their game are like, okay, I'm open to learning. How are you doing this differently? I want to learn. I want to hear. They're open to it.
It's the biggest red flag when I start talking to someone that comes to me for advice. If they even once utter the words, I know, that's already just throwing up a big red flag, and I'm already counting the time to when I can stop talking because I'm feeling like I'm wasting my time.
I know.
It's like if you...
I know.
But you didn't come to me for advice. That's the difference.
No.
But it's like, come on, really. If you want to learn, you've got to be willing to be humble and accept that, all right, you are an expert in something. But if you want to grow, you got to understand, you've got to expect and appreciate that there are people that know an entirely different game. And that's me while that's me saying that there are people that I will be that person for, there are people that are that person for me and will remain to be. And that will always be the case, because every time you go to another level, there is someone above.
Me and you are in the same game of real estate, but there's similarities, there's crossover. We can conversate. But there's so much I don't know about what you do.
Vice versa.
There's so much I don't know about that. But there's so much there. It's great to listen to. No, I definitely enjoy hearing it. So when are you gonna do like a big summit or a massive 3-day Gold Coast seminar?
Watch this space. I'm slowly coming out of the shadows. That's my own internal thing of liking to stay in the background. But watch this space for probably early next year. We'll look to run something. We've been playing around with a few things this year, and probably look to do something like that next year.
Mate, that'd be awesome. I'd definitely like to go to that. Okay, and that's a wrap for part 3 with Peter Bowman. Now, that was an amazing chat. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and he's absolutely given us some amazing feedback and advice and insight into what he's been achieving in property development. So until next time, please make sure you like and subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, all the socials, and until next time, see you later.